Hey guys, hey Christina. Hi. So let's start it. Hey. Oh, something wrong. As usual, Instagram doesn't like me, I think. Maybe we should start once again, because now I can't accept you, Christina. Hi everyone. Are you able? Yeah, I see you, but it's a common problem. So I can't accept you right now. Maybe we start. Yeah. So we can try jump off and we can rejoin. Oh, yeah.
A miracle.
Hi.
Hi. I'm like, oh.
But one moment, because my headphones don't work.
Okay.
But I will try once again. Maybe this time.
All right.
Okay. Once again, something is wrong, but I will try. Yeah, problems as usual.
Oh, it's always like this. I had a hard time
Yeah,
like logging another person in before. It's whatever.
yeah, but maybe now. Yeah, let's try this time.
I mean, I hear you.
Yeah, I hear you too, but no through headphones. But
Ah,
okay, we
that's
can
fine.
we can we can start without my headphones. Oh, how are you? Nice to see you here, and I'm so happy we can speak right now.
Yes, same thing. What time is it for you?
Here is 6 p.m.
Okay, 9 a.m. for me. So I'm gonna
Ah,
be with coffee, and you're like,
yeah.
I'm gonna be with tea.
I have water here right
Water. There
now.
you go.
Yeah, yeah. It's so amazing that we can speak right now together. You're in USA, yeah?
Yeah, I'm in California.
In California. Yeah, awesome. And this is so amazing that so many people just accept my proposal to speak about OCD, and this is so amazing, and I'm so grateful for this amazing community because yeah, this community is um, so amazing and so helpful for others without judgment, without uh, for example, we speak about so important thing and we don't know each other. This is our first conversation, and this is really cool.
Well, I mean, I think with doing this for a little while, what's cool about it is that if you do it, like if you have OCD, you often feel really alone, and you
Yeah,
oftentimes feel like, oh, it's just me, right? And then you're doubting, is it even OCD? And so when you really plug in and finally connect and realize there's a whole world of people here that all understand it, they know it, they want to help you understand it and know it. It just feels really good that you realize like you're not
yeah.
alone. And also it's global. Like you are in Poland, you said?
In Poland, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go, right? Like, so around the world, literally, it's not like OCD is,
Yeah,
in one area. It affects everybody literally around the world. It's just a lot of people still don't know exactly what it is. And there's still a lot of misunderstanding about what it is. But, when you plug in like this, it's great.
yeah. It's really hard when you don't have any support and you're alone with OCD, suffering without any help, without therapy, and without understanding. And First, yeah, we will speak right now about this, how OCD is misunderstood by others, by our families, our community, and when I started my story after my diagnosis in 2023, yeah. When I told my wife something is wrong, I knew that is it can be OCD. She's so scared. She thought
Mm.
that I can be really dangerous. I can hurt my
Mm.
children. I can hurt her,
Yeah.
and I understand her and her point of view because she didn't know anything about OCD. And there are many people in Poland, in the other countries, who really don't understand what OCD is, and they can think we are like a psychopath or something.
Well, I'm originally from Ukraine, and like
Yep.
to speak to that, right? Like, so my mom passed away July 31st, and one of the first things I did is I went to Ukraine to see the family that I do have left there. And, similarly, not just this recent trip I took, but even growing up there and all the times I go back and forth, mental health in general is, from what I've seen, is very, very limited. Like a
Yep.
lot of focus will be on things that seem more acceptable, like alcoholism, or it's something really extreme like schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about things like depression, anxiety, OCD, like those things have not typically been historically things that really are discussed or understood. And culturally, people don't talk about this stuff. Like this stuff is not as accepted in terms of, conversations.
Yeah.
So it's not like in the States, people are way more open. People talk about all sorts of things, like even when I went back recently, I noticed like, yeah, there's still things we don't necessarily talk as openly about. So, it's just also understanding that, and where you are located in the world and what is it like there, right? And then,
Yep.
like you said, to your point, if there's a lack of understanding, we tend to be scared. And also, we want to look at how is it represented in the world, in the media, in movies. And it's often very
Yeah.
misrepresented. So when you hear having some thoughts that are really scary, your first kind of thing you're going to think to yourself is, oh my gosh, do you want to
Yeah.
do that? Is that
Yeah.
something you actually like? Is that something you think about? Oh my gosh, right?
And that's why many people don't tell anyone about their thoughts, their illness, their problems with mental health, because the people are really people scared about what other people will say, will think about them. And especially when we speak about taboo thoughts, it's even harder these people to start therapy, because also in Poland and in other countries, in USA, situation is, I think, better. But in Poland, it's not so many really good therapists who really understand what OCD is and how to treat this, and how to make exposure and response prevention. And that's the point why people don't start therapy, because they are really scared and ashamed about these thoughts and this mental health disorder.
Well, exactly. But I think there's a general fear of judgment. People
Yeah,
generally don't want to be judged, right? We don't want to have somebody look at us and go, oh, right? We don't want to feel that, or because then you're going to be shunned, right? People will then not want to talk to you. And all of us, I
yeah,
think, just as humans from evolution, part of belonging is an important element of survival. So there's this deep internal need we have to somewhat be accepted and somewhat
yeah,
belong somewhere. So, yeah, opening up about like, hey, sometimes I have these weird thoughts, right? It does
yeah,
feel scary. And also culturally, again, right? Like In Ukraine, for example, culturally, there's a lot of judgment usually. Like, I know this. And if you
Yeah.
ever are in that culture, you see people pass judgment all the time. They're always looking, they're always sizing you up and down. There's a lot happening that's not being verbally said. And when you do speak, the way you speak communication is you'll say something, but people are reading between the lines. Like, okay, what are you
Yeah.
really meaning, or what's behind this? So there's already this kind of intensity of, oh my God, there's this going on. And then
Yeah.
like, I don't want to say anything because, oh my God, right? Absolutely, I'm going to be judged, and absolutely people are going to start talking about me, or, misread
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I had really luck that I have around me many people at work, my friends, who don't understand what OCD is, but when I told them, they didn't judge me, and they told me, yeah, we don't know, why can't you just stop? But okay, this is disorder, and through my memes and my page, my friends really understand how OCD works, and what is OCD mechanism, and this is really awesome. But the really first thing I think people don't understand, that OCD is not me. OCD is not is something that really hits our values, and these thoughts hit our values, and many people don't understand this point, because when I ask someone for reassurance, and for example, my family don't understand why I'm asking about this again and again and again, and they think that what I'm doing is only me, not my disorder, and this is really also painful for me. But I understand their point of view, because OCD is really really problem the whole family, but it's lack of understanding that OCD is not me. Yes.
Yeah, so I think there's two things when I hear that. It's kind of, one is, what I've seen through just my work and for myself with my own OCD is that people will only see what you're doing, right? So if they're seeing a
Yeah.
behavior, that's all they're kind of working off of. They're not inside your head, right? They can't read your mind. So they're just going off what they see. So if all they see is, like, I used to be, I used to compulsively apologize. I didn't even realize this was a compulsion, but I used to compulsively apologize. I mean, I excessively would apologize, to the point that some of my friends would be like, God, can you just stop? And I'm like, okay, but I'm sorry. Are you mad?
Yeah.
I mean, it was through the roof, right? I didn't know, but I was doing it. So that's all they see. So it makes sense, right? They get annoyed, they're irritated, they're like, oh my God, Christina, geez. Now, once I learned and realized, oh my God, I have OCD. And, I didn't know, because the way my OCD was showing up, for example, is not something you commonly see in the media. Now we know more about it. But
Yeah.
like, for me, for example, there's like just right OCD. There's some morality and relationship OCD. So I had no idea about those things. I thought it's like, cleaning, touching, flicking lights on. Well, I don't have
Yeah.
that, so I don't have it. I don't have that issue, right? But then I'm like, oh my God, no, wait a minute, I do have it. So the second part to this is not just that it goes against who we know ourselves to be, because that's our experience. I think what's really important is understanding the neurobiology, that there is, in fact, a biological component of, and kind of how I like to explain it to family members and loved ones, is saying, look, it's kind of like this is just what I say, but it's like there's a little glitch. Like the brain is not processing the full circle or the full cycle of information, and it's like it gets to the end. It's like, imagine that it's like there's a little space and it can't complete, right? So it activates internally your limbic part of the brain, which is the fight and flight response. It literally makes the alarm go off, And so I tell people, imagine if you're sitting there and suddenly, you know, something in your head, like you didn't fully finish kind of the thought cycle correctly or properly, and suddenly your alarm bells are going off. What would you think, right? People are like, well, yeah, I'd probably think like, oh my God, something's wrong. I'm like, exactly. And so now imagine that happening over and over and over, and you can't, it's not like you can reach in there and like press a button and turn it off, right? So usually when we get into more of that biological and kind of explaining these certain parts of the brain and how they work, people start to be able to go, oh, okay, right? Like, and then we kind of can get more into like, right. So when that happens, it's not because I'm personally wanting this or creating the experience, that there's something that just isn't properly working the way it needs to. And so in certain moments and over certain topics, I can suddenly get this experience where I'm feeling really anxious or guilty or ashamed or uncomfortable, and because of that alarm, and it's so intense that it's really hard to sort out, is this real, is it not? And so we get a little stuck temporarily. And usually with something like that, people can start to get a little bit of like, oh, okay, so this is more of a, I'm like, yeah, it's like if you have, I don't know, some other, let's say a physical issue, right? And it's not like, I don't know, like I have a back issue. So like sometimes for me, like, it's not because I necessarily always want to be moving and working out. Sometimes I don't feel like it, but I have to because I have a back issue. And if I don't, other things will happen. Like things can get stiff. I might then not be able to walk as easily. So it's like that has nothing to do with who I am, but it's something that's happening in the body.
Yeah, and this is a really good point, because education and knowledge is really important, not only for sufferers, but also for loved ones. And when people will understand that really, that OCD is really connected with brain by chemistry and how OCD mechanism works, it will be easier then to understand these behaviors and
Exactly. We have
what's
to
really
make it
happened.
concrete. Yeah.
Yeah, and why we doing those compulsions again and again, and why we seeking for reassurance, why we stuck in our head and think about something that doesn't really matter, and this
And
is
there's also a lot more research coming to show exactly the elements, but we do know that there's indications that there's also some genetic factors that, you know, you have a predisposition, and then, you know, something can happen and it activates. Like I, for a long time, for example, didn't have things that you could say were really pointers. Maybe I'd have a little anxiety or little things, but it really wasn't until there's certain stressors that happen in my life, like really key, I remember important big moments, where suddenly it flipped, and then I started having these experiences, but I didn't know what the heck was happening. I thought, well, maybe it's because of stress, it'll go away, but then it wasn't really going away, right? And so that's the other piece of it, is that, you know, it's not like it's just random out of the blue. It's like, no, there's already some kind of things that are going on, and then you take the environment, you take in what's happening, you put it all together, and it's like you have the perfect storm, if you will, where things can start to, you know, it turns on.
Yeah, but important thing is that we can speak. In my case, after my diagnosis, I'm really scared to speak about this and to speak with others. But when I opened my mind for speaking about it, for helping people, this is really game changer for me, because I know there are many amazing people who don't understand what OCD is, but they understand that we are people, we are human, and we can we can have any problems with our body, with our brain, and it's so important also that we can ask for help and looking for therapy. And this is amazing because now when I speak out loud about this, so many people write me, Lucas, you are really brave, and this is amazing what you're doing. And I see that is really good thing to help others and breaking the
Yeah.
stigma,
Yeah.
because in Poland and in the world, people think that everybody is a little bit OCD, and this is also second thing that we can speak about, because when I told my friends about this, they told me, Lucas, we have the same. We have thoughts that I can, for example, hit the woman in the store or something like that, but they really don't understand how painful is this, what we feel really inside, and um, how why we want to react for these thoughts, and that is really we need really much time for it, and this really debilitating disorder. It's not only something like being organized or neat or yeah, something like that, but this is really serious disorder, and many people through, I think, through media, we there are many movies about OCD, but movies when where we see OCD in funny way, and it's not so serious, and this is also really important thing. But people, when people see these movies, they think, oh, OCD is something funny or something something like my character or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think 100%, right? There's been a misunderstanding. And again, it's akin to, it's similar to, like, for example, depression, PTSD, right? For a long
Yep.
time, we didn't fully understand those, right? This is just like that. It's in that same category. And you're right, for a long time, again, because you just see kind of these behaviors outwardly, so it became easy, I think, to start to create content around, like, oh, it's a quirk. Oh, it's a
Yeah.
little just funny, weird thing you
Yeah.
do, right? And so these associations got made, and that's how we work as humans.
Yeah.
And now, as there's more kind of push towards, talking about, and there's been research done on, for humans, intrusive thoughts or having just weird thoughts, that we all have weird thoughts, but it's really
Yeah.
different when you have a weird thought and you can recognize it's a weird thought, and you literally just, you
Yeah.
dismiss it and you
Or,
move
or
on,
or
versus
something
OCD,
like,
you don't dismiss it.
yeah, or something like common worries, when everyone have common worries, and I'm worried about my marriage, about my family, but this is not OCD. When yeah,
Right.
but people can think that, yeah, this is not a great point. Just you just worry about this, or I have also scary thoughts, and this is not something to spend
Exactly. Well,
the
we're
whole
kind of
day.
getting into, yeah, well, we're getting into, like, what I call from ICBT, just to also say, like, I learned this
Yep.
in that treatment, which is inference-based. There's, like,
Yep.
everyday doubts we have, which are common and they make sense. But then there's obsessional doubting, and that process is completely different. And
Yeah.
learning to understand yourself, right? Like you, I've had friends who are like, oh, Christina, oh, you have OCD? Oh, I have OCD. Is it OCD? Like, I like to open my cabinets, and then I
Yeah.
need everything to be lined up. I literally stop my friends mid-sentence. I'm like, please stop. I love you with all respect.
Yeah.
But look, and I usually say the following. If you enjoy it, you like it, it gives you pleasure, like it makes you feel good, like that's a whole different topic than OCD, where you're not driven by the fact you like it. I'm like, what you're driven by is you're so scared that something bad is going to happen. Your anxiety is through the roof that you can't literally move on. You will see people so
Yeah.
distressed that they feel like they need to do this behavior, whatever that is, over and over and over and over to try to feel just a little bit better, a little relief. I'm like, do you have that? Are you able, do you get stuck and you can't move on? Or do you just kind of do it and you're like, okay, and you go about your day, right? Like there's a key difference between those
Yeah.
two things. And
Yes, sometimes I want people to just jump for a few minutes in my head, and they will understand what really OCD is. Yeah, it's so hard to explain, but situation is every day is better. I think there are so many amazing people who want to talk about it, and this really can change the situation and awareness.
yeah, well, like yourself, right? We have, influencers nowadays. We have podcasts. Like I have my podcast, right? We have other platforms and people, and I think it's important that we keep advocating and people keep
Yeah,
learning what it really is, because still in the media, I'll see and people will send me things and kind of point my attention to it, but people talk about OCD and they still mention it like the whole cleaning and and again that's more of like a personality, like we call it
yeah,
OCPD, where you're focused on, oh well, I think this is the right way to do stuff, and there can be rigidity, but that's not OCD.
yeah,
Right. And now, thank God, we have more people who have bigger platforms and are more famous, like Howie Mandel, for example, is one. But we have more folks who are coming out and more sharing openly, kind of what it is. And I think because we have more people with bigger platforms who are hopefully
yeah,
we can reach more folks with what it
yeah,
actually
and
is
we
in a
can
more accurate way for
normalize,
behavior.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, and we can normalize this situation with OCD. And when I was last year in November in Warsaw, in the Polish capital, to record a podcast, I speak about OCD, but the people think OCD is just checking doors, checking windows, and I told them about ruminations and about pure OCD, because this is something what people don't see. They can see that we are sad or mm, we are close. We don't want to go somewhere. We think the whole day about something, but they really don't understand how what we feel inside and what are happening in our head. And this is also important point to speak about, because I think there are not so many people who speak about this side of OCD, about mental compulsions, about ruminations, and people don't understand this.
Oh, 100%. Like that, I'm one example I'll personally share. Like I was doing a lot of mental rituals, and that's one of the, not only
Yeah,
were my OCD topics once, I didn't know that was OCD, but also what I was doing in my head, I didn't know that was, I thought I'm just figuring stuff out. I'm just trying to make sense of things. That's how I interpreted it. And when I learned
yeah,
about people ruminate and the different ways, and I learned about compulsive rumination, I'm like, oh my God, that's me, right? And so it's
yeah,
true. I mean, again, there's more, we talk more about it, it's getting better, but I mean, to your point, we're going to have to talk about it for a long time. I mean, even me, I got on a podcast end of last year, and similarly, on that show, you know, we're talking about it, and same question. It's like, oh, well, you know, if I want to like just extra clean bottles for my baby, is that OCD? I'm like, no, that's just being a good parent. Like any good parent, you want to just make sure your, you know, bottles you're going to use to feed your baby are clean and sanitized. Like that's a standard everyday practice, right? That's different than if I'm now excessively cleaning them to the point where it's interfering with me, let's say engaging with my baby, right? Like these are the differences. So it's just, I'm only saying what's interesting is that, you know, I find that we have to keep repeating and kind of keep saying it over and over, you know, this is what OCD actually is. This is how it feels. This is how it shows up. This is what's going on in the brain. And it's like we have to just keep repeating it as many times as it takes till we reach a bigger, wider audience, if you will, to understand.
Yeah, and this is not our choice. OCD is not our choice, and there are also many people who I know that don't understand this. That I don't choose that I want to do these compulsions. I really don't want to have OCD to suffer with this, and this is not our choice.
Exactly right. Quick question. I don't know if you're able or see like if there's comments or questions, if anybody does, because on my end things look like they're a little frozen. So I don't know for you.
Yeah, one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have here one question. Have you seen in the media everyone talking about the NFL kicker and his routine that was seen on TV? Many didn't understand it as OCD compulsions even till he's diagnosed.
Yep. I did. That's what I mean. Like people send me these things. I did. I saw it. I read it. And that's exactly what I mean is that I'm glad we have more people who have bigger platforms like that are talking about it more openly, because it is a personal choice to be vulnerable and share. And this is exactly why we need more of this, because like when I saw that, I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. I totally know exactly what it is. But that's because I'm also in the field for a long time and have treated, over like 300 people. Like I have it, right? But if you don't have it, and we have to think from that mindset. If I don't have this thing and I don't really understand what it is, if I just look at that and I'm just seeing that behavior, this is a prime example of how we're not going to connect or understand, well, how's that OCD? And I think this is just my personal opinion, but I think this is where coming into bringing in the neurobiology discussion and zooming out to talk about the process of how OCD brain works. Because my biggest kind of thing that I try to teach through my podcast or when I'm working with clients directly or even these kind of lives is to always remind people, let's zoom out a little bit from the exact behavior or theme, and let's come back to understanding the whole process. Because if you can understand the process, guess what? We can plug in any theme in there. It'll still function the same. And so we want to understand the function of how this whole thing works. And then that's how we'll start to see and recognize, oh, okay, it's a feeling, right? People are not familiar with this. OCD can manifest as an intrusive feeling. Something feels off. It doesn't feel right. So you're driven to do something over and over and over until you feel like, okay, that I feel complete. I feel good. I feel right. Now I can move on, right? That's one that people often will miss and not get, right? Or we do something because we have not just perfectionism, but OCD perfectionism, which is different. It's I'm doing it to the detrimental focus where it needs to be perfect, and I can't move on to the next thing until I have it perfect, and I need to see and know for sure it's exactly perfect. And versus perfectionism is more like, I want it to be, excellent, but I can move on. So this is an example
yeah,
like with that, and it's okay, 100%, right? We see that, and if we're not having the follow-up conversations to help connect the dots, then people are not getting the education. So it's an opportunity where we
yeah,
can, help to bridge that gap of knowledge.
yeah. And sorry for off top, but here is my mom. So, hi, mom. Nice to see you
Hi,
here.
Mom.
She unfortunately she doesn't understand English, but she's here with me and she supports me. So
Oh, I love that.
amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and what we're talking about that because OCD, people don't understand also that OCD can affect any area of our life. And this is also important because OCD is not only perfectionism, only checking doors or physical compulsions, but can affect also any area of our life. It can hit any our values. And for example, when I spoke about this in Polish radio, we are talking about taboo OCD, about POCD, about harm OCD. And this is also really important because people are afraid of speaking about it because of shame, mm, of judgment. And the mechanism of OCD is the same. And if I have POCD or just checking the doors, is the same OCD mechanism and the same. We have the same way to go to therapy, but people don't understand checking compulsions or for example checking windows, home appliances is not so stigmatizing than harm OCD or pedophile OCD.
Well, right, because we're talking now, and this is an important point, right? Because we can say, well, all OCD is OCD, which it's true. However, I do think it's important to highlight that there are certain topics culturally and societally are a bit
Yeah,
more charged. They're more heavy, right? So when we're talking about sexual content, anything like that, right? Anything sexual based, anything that could question or call your morality or ethical behavior into question, right? Anything around violence. If you globally think, forget OCD for a minute, in general, just without even OCD, we all are going to have some sort of a response when we talk about these topics because they are heavy,
yeah,
right? They have weight to them. So now, if you bring an OCD to it, right, quite often, again, if people don't understand the biology of OCD and kind of what's happening, then
yeah,
again, we can misunderstand that, oh, you have those thoughts. It's like, no, the truth is it doesn't matter what the thought is. It's again just how the brain is not properly functioning, right? We don't, and there's actually somebody in the field, well known, I'm not going to say name, but there was an issue where somebody who's actually very well known kind of commented on this POCD post, and was starting to go off about, oh my gosh, these people are, they're horrible people and they should be locked up. And it's like, this is exactly the issue. It's like, hold on, man, before you jump to that, because that's exactly what will make people not want to share and not get the right treatment, right? Because your lack of
yeah,
knowledge, you're now getting out there on this big platform and condoning this. But the truth is, these people are like 1,000 miles away from somebody who actually would want to do something like that, right? OCD is
yeah,
not because I want this thing. OCD, if you listen to people, it's like, oh my gosh, this stresses me so much. I don't want anything like this, but I'm now so scared. But what if I might be? And so when you start to listen, you can see it's really evident that people are so scared and freaked out because they don't want anything to do with this, And so
yeah,
we do have to recognize that these topics are just heavy topics in general. And then if you have OCD around this, like, yeah, it's going to feel intense, of course. And I think it's important to name that, right? And it makes sense
Yeah,
that you feel
absolutely.
extra nervous to share it. But if you find somebody who treats OCD as specialist, oh my God, they will normalize it for you right away. They're going to be like, man, let me give you, as a matter of fact, 50,000 more examples of all the things you know we hear, because we recognize, just like the example with self-harm OCD, right? If somebody
Yep.
doesn't know what self-harm OCD is, they might want to hospitalize that person. If you work with a specialist, they're going to be like, no, because you know the difference between somebody actually actively wanting and having a plan to self-harm versus, oh my God, I have these thoughts that keep bombarding me and I don't want to do this, but oh my gosh, like those are two completely different things. So it's
Yeah,
really important.
people should understand, yeah, people should understand that we don't want to have those thoughts, but we can just stop this. And these thoughts hit so hard because they hit our values and what we really love, what we really care about, and this is the
Yeah,
difference.
they literally go against who you know
Yeah,
yourself to be, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
we call it ego-dystonic, right? Versus when I have
yeah,
thoughts and feelings that go with who I know myself to be, then we're in alignment. But when OCD experience, it's literally the polar opposite. It's exactly the opposite of who we are, who we know ourselves to be, how we work in the world, our interests, our likes. It's a completely the opposite side of it. So it's not even like a real sense of self. It's this feared sense of the self I could be, I might be. What if I become that? I don't want to be that. So there's a lot of internal struggle because it
yeah,
goes against, right? Against who we actually are for.
yeah. And I think now we started speaking about this in Poland out loud, and there is so many amazing people in Poland too who speak about OCD, and we can really spread awareness. And I know, I really believe that what we're doing right now have has a really huge value for us and for others.
I
And
love it. Yeah. I was just
yeah,
going to say that also, like, just to put out there, there's also folks in the UK and Ireland. So like I'm really a big fan of, and if need be, like I'm happy to, but you know, to connect more people on that part of the world too, because I think, you know, when you bring more people globally and different
yeah,
parts, right, you could do more, right? And I
yeah,
think it's just anybody listening to this,
absolutely.
just to know, like, it's not just in the US, like there's other folks who are working in Europe and other parts of the world that, you know, it, like, treatment
Yeah,
does exist. It's just, you have to, you know where to look.
yeah, agree. When I started this project with memes, I have just few people here, and now I know that thanks social media, there is really social media are a really great tool to spread awareness, and it it would be a sin when I don't use it this way, I think,
Yeah.
because it's a great opportunity to speak about this and speak with other therapists like you or with others sufferers, and this is awesome.
Yeah.
And here we have one, I think, question. Yeah, one question. Uh, is OCD a genetic trait or more environmental driven? And I think this is more complicated, and we can just answer this in easy way because OCD is so complicated disorder. Yeah.
Well, from what research so far that we have, and again, there's more being done, but it's not either or, it's a both and. Like there seems to be indications that there are some biological genetic pieces that create a predisposition, and then there's also environmental pieces. So there's multiple things that are happening, but again, this is what I'm saying is not like, you know, this is a definite and final answer. This is just to
Yeah.
say, so far from what we know, this seems to be going in that direction, but obviously we're, you know, continuing to do research, but it's a both and experience.
Yeah. Okay. And this, I have one thing in my head right now, because when I went to psychiatrist 20 years ago, he told me that I suffer with just with anxiety disorder, and this is also misunderstood. This is also thing that people don't understand, because OCD is not just about anxiety. It's more complicated, and it's a really important thing to find the right therapist who can help us and start the proper treatment.
Yeah, and if we're going to talk about treatment, I just want to name some different options that people may or may not know about. Some are evidence-based, some are not evidence-based, but there are options. So we have exposure response prevention, evidence-based, inference-based CBT, evidence-based. Then we have metacognitive therapy that's more commonly known in Europe. That's actually what's being used there for OCD. We have rumination-focused ERP, which is Dr. Michael Greenberg. We have acceptance commitment therapy, which usually that goes to kind of can be combined and doing ERP together. So those are just some that come to mind. Some of the latter ones I named are not, I don't know that they're evidence-based, but there's just options out there. So, so that people can kind of start to look and see, what feels like a good fit for you. And then of course, medication, which people ask me those questions, and medication is up to you, right? Some people want to take it for short term just to help them start to do the therapy. Some people decide to not use medication and just do therapy. Some do only medication. So everybody's, in a different place with it. But the point is, OCD is actually treatable. You can get your life back. It does require a little bit of work and effort, because you got to learn about yourself and kind of what you need to do now differently, and how to adjust. But you can do it, and there is actually help globally. But then, of course, everybody has to look for their own, what they can afford, right, where they're located.
Yep.
I mean, all those kind of details. But there's enough courses, classes at this point. There's enough podcasts. There's enough things, books, that if we put in the work, we can start to move forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I started reading books after my diagnosis, and this is also a game changer for me, because if I know more about OCD, it's easier to implement proper moves in my life, in my behaviors, and when I know that this specific thought is OCD thought, I can see this, I can leave this in my head, and I can stop reaction for these thoughts. It's not easy, but it's much easier with this knowledge.
Yeah, awareness, right? We have
Awareness,
to become aware.
right.
If you don't know what you're working on, if you're not aware of it, then you can't do much about it. But if you start to become aware and start to recognize, wait a second, this feels like and this sounds like, uh-oh, and get to know, what are my triggers? What are my insecurities? What are my vulnerabilities?
Yep.
Where does this thing tend to come up more? Okay, right? And then you create a game plan, and now you have something to you can actually work towards and get better.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Here with us is also Zach from Obsessively Compulsive Memes, so my friend. So here we have a question from him. Can you all talk about how to tell when disgust-based responses are OCD or just preference?
Disgust-based?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, I interviewed somebody on my podcast. OCD was for a podcast. His name is Rich Gallagher. He actually wrote a paper all focused on disgust-based OCD. And essentially what he was saying is that the disgust part, there's a different part in the brain where that's processed. And so his whole concept was, instead of doing kind of the classic standard ERP, for example, to implement what he would call a mastery approach ERP. So it would be things like again, because disgust is processed differently than fear or anxiety and things like that, is that we'd want to focus on giving up avoidances and learning how to re-engage with things. And even if we do need to use some safety behaviors, but that we use them so that we can re-engage with things anyway. So I'm just putting that plug in. You can look him up, Rich Gallagher. You can find that episode on my podcast. OCD was for a podcast, Rich Gallagher. He has a book on Amazon, and he goes a little more in depth and has written papers about specifically disgust-based OCD, because there we're not necessarily working on tolerating discomfort and anxiety. It's more that I feel like I might not be able to handle it, and some things are disgusting and gross, right? So we have to kind of tailor and shift the approach a little bit to address it just a little differently than we might kind of more classic standard OCD approaches.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
So, yeah, exactly. We have some questions, and I think we can answer those questions right now, because
yeah, I can definitely stay on for a little bit longer, but I'm gonna have to go soon. But let's dive on in.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So. First question is, I think we talked about it, importance of choosing a therapist that truly gets how OCD works. That we have already.
Yeah.
What are your tips for creating dialogue around OCD information?
I mean, I feel like we kind of addressed that too, right? I think what's important is, getting a little education around the neurobiology of OCD. And often it starts with that. So if somebody's just brand new and they don't know how to broach the topic,
Yep.
I often tell my clients, for example, like, hey, check out a podcast, or you can go to International OCD Foundation. And there's plenty of resources there about what is OCD. And there's like a little booklet they even have, so you can take something like that and share it. If you're inclined and you're more want to look at it from a different lens, you can also go to icbt.online. They also have a different way that they see OCD, but something like that, where you have something kind of concrete from, resources that are, kind of seen as authority, I guess, if you will, or known, right? So you can just pull from that place, so you're not jumping around to 50 different websites, because we can do that compulsively. But pick
absolutely.
one or two places, right? Pick one or two. You don't have to go to Reddit or ChatGPT or whatever else. Just one or two of those. Read it, right? Check out a podcast. Like, I'll say one show that's really good, Huberman Labs. So Huberman Labs, he has an episode dedicated just to OCD, and that man deep dives into the neurobiology, and it is excellent. And I often will send that to people and say, listen to this very thoroughly, because that's psychoeducation. So that's where I have people start, so that they really open up that dialogue and get a little bit oriented to, what's going on with what this is. And then we get into, like, specifically for me, how it shows up, right?
Yeah, so I'm not a specialist and therapist, but as sufferer, when I speak about OCD and and if I want to spread awareness and information, I think really important is to be authentic and to be honest with others and speak with not. I think not medical language, but just tell people about OCD in a really easy way that they can understand what we're talking about. Because when we speak with therapists with this complicated language, we have compulsions, we have intrusive thoughts. This is all connected with serotonin and something like that. This is not easy to understand.
Yes.
And
agreed.
When I speak with others, with OCD sufferers, it's a little bit easier me to talk about OCD, because I suffer with OCD and I don't have this medical language in my head. I speak as simple as possible.
I agree with that. Honestly, that is, even as a therapist and in my everyday life myself, I 100% think it's important to keep it as simple as possible and give
Yeah,
examples that people can relate to.
yeah,
But I do
absolutely.
like to provide others because some people really want to get in and learn the mechanism. So
Yeah,
but I agree with you. I think it's valuable to keep it as easy and simple so people can relate and really grasp it pretty quickly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. We have a few minutes now, or
Yeah.
you want to?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Give me
So,
one. Give.
so it's. I think it's question for you. How did you get over, or for me too? How did you get over fears and anxiety when you started doing your podcast?
Oh yeah, that one. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
So like for me, this whole notion of even starting the podcast really came from my clients because they kept telling me like, "Oh my God, I wish I could have you in my ear between sessions like a podcast," and I kind of blew it off like nah. And then they said it again and again, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll consider it. And then a client actually, I was working with their kiddo, and that client said, "Oh my God, you're like an OCD whisperer." Um, so that's where the name really came from because that client's mom was like, the show Ghost Whisperer, but you're like the OCD whisperer. And I'm like, that's funny, okay. And so then I had the notion, okay, I guess I'll try it. So I ordered like, the headset and I got the mic.
yeah,
And I remember for the first time sitting and like, okay, I guess I'll try. And I pressed record and I first said, hello, hello. And oh my God, I had a panic attack. I hated the way
yeah,
I sounded. I was like, ah! I shut it. I
yeah.
literally put
Same.
it away. Yeah, I was like, no. And I put it away and I walked away. And it took me 4 months where I had some clients kind of kept saying, hey, do you think you might, do a podcast? I'm like, ah. And finally, after 4 months, I'm like, okay, Christina, you know what? Maybe you don't like the way your voice sounds, or you think you're going to sound stupid. Just do it. And I just kind of let myself flow. My first ever episode is What is OCD? It's 10 minutes. And I just let myself talk the way I would in session with somebody. And I was like, whatever. And I just did it. And then I hired somebody to help me learn how to just do basic edits. And that person on that day showed me, and then it goes, okay, press publish. I'm like, what? He's like, press publish. I'm like, what now? He goes, yeah, press publish. I'm like, wait, no. He's like, press it now. I'm like, ah! And I pressed it.
Yeah,
And that's how the
yeah,
first episode came to be.
yeah. ERP in action. Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
So, yeah, I had the same situation because the first live stream I had with two girls about eating disorder, and this was last year. And then I decided to go out of my comfort zone and speak with a few people in Polish about OCD. And after a few times, I saw that I can do it and I can do something really good for others. And this was amazing feeling. And uh, 1 year ago, I didn't even think that we can speak here right now in English.
Uh-huh.
This was unbelievable, and there are so many amazing people like you that we can speak openly about this. We didn't know each other, but we decided to speak about this right now, right here, and this was amazing. I'm really scared before every live stream. I'm really scared. I think about this, and this is like a really great exposure. But when we start speaking, it's all
Goes away.
goes away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And I think with practice, because same for me, I mean, I still get nervous, etc. But like part of the decision to keep going, and I often say
Yeah,
that just keep going, just keep taking that step, because through the experience, and it's not like everything is an intentional exposure I'm doing for, some things are just I'm
yeah,
taking a chance, I'm taking a risk. But by doing it over and over and over, you're also giving yourself that feedback, like, okay, like, look, I did that. Okay, it was not as bad as I thought. And so that's how over time too, you start to get more comfortable. Like same thing, the reason I even started my YouTube channel with this is purely just to start to get comfortable seeing myself in video, because when I first was releasing them, I couldn't even watch those videos again. I was so like, ugh. And it took me a while before I finally now, like I got comfortable, but I knew that the only way I could get comfortable is just by doing it and internally taking that risk of like, oh my gosh, do I really know what I'm talking about? Right, common one, or oh my gosh, people are gonna hate me, or ooh, I look weird on camera. All sorts of stuff
Yeah,
is in the mind. But
yeah,
over time, you just accept and go whatever, even whatever it is, it is. I'm just gonna do it anyway. So, it's
yeah,
practice with
yeah.
time.
Yeah, this is cool, and this is how ERP works. Yeah, we should practice
Yeah,
every day with small steps. And I have also two options. I can just don't make any live stream, or I can use my channel, my account where is so many people to do something really good, and
yeah,
this option wins every time. This
exactly.
option wins
Yes,
because we can change something
exactly,
and make a
exactly.
difference.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And you are obviously. So thank you for that, and thank you for the opportunity and reaching out and doing this. I mean, this is it, right? This is it in action.
Yeah, so cool to speak with you about this.
You too.
Thank you so much. If
Thank you.
there, yeah, if there will be any question, just people can just write me, and I will answer later. So we can save this life, and for those who, yeah, oh, thank you. For those who can be here, and I think see you next time.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks, Lucas. Have a great day or evening for you.
Yeah, yeah, now I'm going to sleep with my kid.
All right.
So
Bye.
thank you very much, Christina. Bye.